Hey there, it's Jay here from UNIFI Labs. For this video, I'm going to take you through our new functionality in UNIFI Core version 3.2. With this update, we rolled out the ability to store Revit materials and fill patterns in your libraries alongside virtually any other file type you're currently storing. So let's go ahead and get started with adding materials and fill patterns from a Revit project to your UNIFI Core libraries. So from Revit, you'll need to go to the Batch Export tool in the UNIFI toolbar, which is under the Add-ins tab. From here, you'll see that there are two new categories to export from: materials and fill patterns. Under materials, you can see that they're even further subcategorized by material classes. And so these classes are populated from the current Revit project and include any custom material classes that are defined here. Here you can see I can expand the material class and see the individual materials within that class. And I can choose those individual materials, or I can choose the entire class by checking it. If I scroll down to fill patterns, you'll see these are also subcategorized, except these are subcategorized as drafting or model fill patterns. So again, if I expand the drafting fill pattern type, I can select individual fill patterns as I see fit. Now I'll click Export. Now back at UNIFI Core, you can see that I'm redirected to the upload screen, and the materials and fill patterns from the Batch Export tool have been added to my upload queue. So now I can simply choose the libraries I would like to add these fill patterns and materials to and click Upload. And once those materials and fill patterns have been uploaded to the cloud, your users will be able to find and apply them to their Revit projects. So now that we've uploaded materials and fill patterns to our libraries, I'll demonstrate some techniques on finding them. So let's start with browsing. So from the Browse Content screen, I'll navigate to the Architecture library. And from here, you'll see there are two new categories for fill patterns and materials. Let's start with fill patterns. So here are all the fill patterns that are stored within this library. When I click on the name of any fill pattern, I can review some of the properties associated with that fill pattern. Here you can see some of the properties of this fill pattern. I can see the line angle as well as some line spacing properties. So when browsing for materials, you'll click on the materials category. And again, we are able to handle any custom material classes that you create in Revit, and that's how we're grouping the materials here. So these are all the classes that exist in this library. So let's look at the materials that belong to the wood class. Here I can see all of my Revit materials in the wood class. And if I click on the title of any of one of these materials, I can view the properties of this material. So this is similar to reviewing fill patterns, where we can review the properties. However, when you review properties of materials, there's a secondary navigation, which allows you to review properties of the graphics, the appearance, some physical and thermal properties as well. And now that we've covered browsing and reviewing materials and fill patterns, let's search for this content, as it's exactly the same as searching for any other file type in UNIFI, except we've actually added some new filter functionality to help finding materials and fill patterns. For this example, let's say I'm looking for a mirrored glass material. So I'll just type in mirror. Now, obviously, this is going to return some content that are not materials, like these bathroom mirrors from Bradley or BIM Store. But over on my right, I have my filters button, which will help me filter this content by Revit material. And you'll notice once I select materials here, I can further filter this content by material class. It's fairly similar to search for fill patterns with some added filter abilities. So if I do a wildcard search here, and I change to filter by fill pattern category, you'll notice down here, we can now further filter by fill pattern type, whether it's drafting or model. And now that we've covered how to store and find materials and fill patterns in UNIFI, I'll show you how to use them easily. So let's go back to my architecture library and navigate to the stone class. And I want to load this marble material into my project. So just like any other piece of content in UNIFI, I simply click on the preview image. And now UNIFI has downloaded this material from the cloud and loaded it into my project. Now, similar to loading a family and being immediately set to the placement tool, when loading a Revit material, I'm set directly into the paint tool. So that means I can simply begin to click on faces of elements to apply that material. Now, if you only want to load materials and not paint them onto elements, when you load the material into your project, you can simply hit the escape key on your keyboard, and although you didn't paint any elements, the material has already been loaded into the project. Another way to load materials and fill patterns into your Revit project is to use the batch insert from the right-click menu. So I'd use Shift-Select, right-click, and choose the batch insert to my project. Now there is one technicality about materials. As of version 3.2, the material assets will still refer to the location of the assets when the material was uploaded to UNIFI. So that means users who are looking to render with these materials will need to have access to the assets in that same location. Now we are working on improving this requirement, which should be included in the next version of UNIFI Core. Well, that wraps up this demonstration of our new ability to store Revit materials and fill patterns in UNIFI Core. We hope this new feature will help you gain some control and organization of materials and fill patterns in your Revit projects. Now, if you have any questions or need help, reach out to us at support@unifilabs.com. Or if you have any suggestions about improving our products, please don't hesitate to request a feature. Thank you.